Hey everyone, Sean here, and today in this video I wanted to sit down and talk about Genshin Impact, which is a game that I've been playing for a very good while at this point. Ever since its release date and stuff like that, up to this point. And I wanted to give my thoughts about what pretty much the things that people like Tectone have been bringing up for the game. I mean, what it really is, and pretty much and all that in between. So, must I remind you, for these videos, please like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff, and don't forget to hit the bell because I really do appreciate it because it really does help out the channel, as for all channels anyway. So, I really do appreciate it if you guys want, if you can do that. So, I really want to talk about this because Genshin Impact is something, like I said, I've been playing for a while, but it is something I do really like as a whole, not just the fact that it is free to play, but I really do actually like the game for what it has. The characters, the lore is very interesting, but mostly, the characters I think really carries the game, along with their gameplay aspects and everything else. And the feeling of being empowered by things like the weapons and the artifacts and stuff, especially when you get the good ones for your favorite character, that all comes like together essentially. That's what it kind of feels like. And the look of the game definitely does help as well. But for me, it's really the characters and pretty much stuff relating to that, and the story that comes along with it, I guess, especially with like each event that kind of adds a little more to the story and such, kind of builds up and goes from there. It's been really interesting of where this game was going, and unfortunately, it's been going through ups and downs, and a lot of downs for sure. And some there are definitely ups for the game as well. Now, there were some downs because not really relating to the game, but people in the community. Unfortunately, there's been some drama that really like some people apart. Former friends has become sort of bitter, sort of enemies, I guess you can say. Former friends now and era ex good friends, sort of thing. Not gonna really say here, but I think you'll probably know what I'm talking about. There was a very big one and it's between two people that I do watch, and immediately feeling that I wasn't going to follow one of them because I felt one of them was incompetent. But at the end of the day, I think both of them, if you do really think about it, both of them were pretty incompetent, as much. So it's just some drama, and I feel like this is definitely something that should be settled between the two. But besides the point, sort of. But that's kind of what the game does to people, I guess. It's just, I don't know. It's like these weird chain of events, but maybe it's really because of what the game is. For a game that lacks like a lot of the real content, real juicy content that people really look forward to in these sort of games. And I guess to just really get this out of the way at this point, the pretty much the root of all this problem, this whole problem, right? I guess the main reason, there are plenty of other reasons of why the game is kind of talked about in this fashion, and such, and people leave and completely stop making content for this game from some people like Zeal Ambition. You know, it's really hard to make content like juicy long-term content, if you're especially when you're like not that creative about it, and not as, maybe not as entertaining, or not as X and Y, or whatever, X plus Y equals whatever. The game really isn't meant for that sort of thing. There are a lot of games that get milked for content, and it can last you for a pretty long while. years and years even. But I think Genshin Impact isn't meant to be like that, unfortunately. As much as people really love the game, there's a lot of people playing the game still, I think, and I think that's just what it is. I mean, it's a game for the people and not really for the content creators, so to say. You literally like most of the time, especially once you get to that point, literally you can you play the game for at most an hour, but probably not an average of like what 20 to 30 minutes, and that's pretty much it, man. Like the resin is definitely a big problem still. Even if they up the limit, I mean, it'll probably last you for like an hour, right? Maybe like if we're ever lucky, maybe like an hour and a half. But right now, the fastest you could finish your dailies and stuff like that and burn your resin is like 20 minutes, pretty much. Or maybe 30 minutes, maybe to be realistic. But point being, there's not much content to generate from Genshin Impact on the daily. Maybe like, of course, whenever each event comes out for this game, you can definitely come up with something and keep your audience entertained and such with those with that content related to the event. But once it reaches to the 2-week period, which is usually how long these events last, it's going to be a dry. The dry spell is pretty long. I think the dry spell is like another 2 weeks, that sort of thing, even longer maybe. Sometimes events last as long as 20 days, and then the dry spell can last as long as 20 days. That's like pretty much what the game is sort of like, and that's what it's going to be like for a long while. So again, I mean, that really goes back to the point of Genshin Impact being a game for the people and not so much content creators in the long run. It literally just has most of the time, you playing for an hour at most, and that's pretty much it. And then there's events along the way that does come with, sometimes with more story content, more little mini games and such to get you more primo gems and extra little weapons here and there. Sometimes, yes, characters do come in, of course. Let's not forget about that. But the characters don't necessarily guarantee new content because, of course, not everyone is so lucky because it's all part of gacha. And that's what kind of, that's like the sort of elephant in the room when it comes to these sort of games. When you want to make content out of it, when you want to generate something out of it. Now, yes, of course, you could, record yourself doing these gachas and stuff like that, the rolls and temples and all that stuff, like I have. But you can only do it so much for most people. I mean, most people can only do it so much and not be and possibly be boring at times, and it's only really the select few that people really want to stick around, like M-Tashed and Asian guy and and Tagtone and whatever, right? And it can only last for so long, if it's just all about the poll videos, and you know what I mean, like people have to start to get really creative with their content, and you kind of can see that with some of these guys and other content creators as well. They really have to do something, sort of out of the box in order to keep the game going, or that sort of content flow going when it comes to Genshin Impact. But yes, whenever those events come around, it's a lot easier. But when it's during this dry spell, it's definitely a whole lot harder than yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like it could be definitely tough to keep an audience, and when you want to do something else, that definitely rocks the boat when it comes to the algorithm and everything else. Now, luckily, I don't really care about all that stuff. So not only, Genshin Impact isn't the only thing I play. Of course, I play the Nintendo games. Back in the day, I used to play a lot of Nintendo games with my friends locally, offline and all that stuff, and hence the We Have Fun series. But times have changed, and we have to do something, right, if we're gonna want to continue to do something for the channel. So I just do my best to provide the content that I personally like. It's like my hobby sort of thing, and I wanted to just show that hobby slash passion and interest to anyone else and see if they like it or not. And if they don't, then it is what it is, sort of thing. I don't try to like cater my content towards an audience. I just put out content that kind of aligns with my interest, and if people like it, great, fantastic. And if not, then not. That's just kind of what this channel is really all about. You could say that for those sort of channels, but they want to do something else, right? They want to do something other than Genshin Impact, but they're afraid that their algorithm is going to get rocked. And that's what the situation they're in. Even MTash like clearly admitted that. Like he's like thinking about making a new channel and go from there and keep all the related games like Genshin Impact on his main channel, because that's really what drove his numbers up like by a lot. It skyrocketed because of the game. And then I circle back to the whole thing where Genshin Impact really isn't all about content creation. It's just a game to make money off of from the people, right? It's a gacha game at the end of the day. It's a console game that plays like it's a console game with the model of a mobile game, unfortunately, and that means you can only play it for so long because of the resin system, which is the stamina system for a lot of these gacha games, and that's where we have to stop essentially for the day. Genshin Impact is such a it feels like a main game sort of thing, like a console game. And I know, of course, it's on PC, but I could just call it a console game as a means of saying it's not a mobile game. But it's like a full-fledged game, and it feels like it, it looks like it plays like it for the most part. But there's the resin system, there's the other factors, the gacha system too, that make it that it's so that it's built as a mobile game essentially. And of course, this being on mobile, I mean, right, like it really is catered towards the whole mobile game aspect of things. It's such a live service sort of game. That's what it's trying to be essentially at the end of the day. So, those sort of content creators have to be really creative about it, but has been a considerable amount of people kind of just backing away from it at the end of the day. And it's an interesting thing. I mean, it's definitely worth talking about for people who love the game. I certainly loved it. I mean, it's funny that I started with this game not because of my own ambition, but because it was another game that my friends were playing, and so happens that I picked it up, just because people were playing it in my circle. And it's just so weird. Like, people then left that game after some point, like early on, like super early on, and I was the one who kept like playing it here and there. And then suddenly, I just really started to get in the game. At some point, I just, from that point on, have been playing it pretty consistently for the most part. I miss days here and there for dailies, but it's just like one day. Like I haven't gone without like missing a day or two or whatever. I haven't gone for a week, missing a week of playing Genshin Impact. So I've been pretty much for the most part been pretty damn consistent with the dailies and all that stuff. So I've been getting the daily primo gems and getting the Welkin whatever thing, like the daily gems you get from the deal, the $5 deal, and it's that's where I'm at with the game. It's I'm a low budget player for the most part. I drop in like $50 here and there. That's essentially how much I've only put into the game, which is $50. And that was funny because as soon as I did that, Eula came into the came into my my roster from the poll. It's like she heard the sound of money coming in, so she answered to the call. But I've only spent $50, so that's the kind of player I am. But I'm willing to spend money if I don't get Yaimiko right away. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with the game. But it is interesting to think about when it comes to Genshin Impact and where its future is going to be, possibly. I think the game will be around for a long while, but who the hell knows of where the game is going to be wound up. There's already another game from MiHoYo coming. I mean, will the game end? I have no idea. They could, I mean, even though the game has made a lot of money, I mean, at the end of the day, that's MiHoYo's decision to keep the game going or not. So, who the hell knows, man? I mean, there's been games that gone and went. I mean, there's plenty of Bandai Namco mobile games that have sort of kicked the bucket, even though they've made considerable amount of money. But for the most part, I think those tales of mobile games kind of make their money's worth, and then they're kind of just like, all right, let's just pull the plug or something, because we definitely don't have any other ideas or something like that. And maybe that's where Genshin Impact is going to wind up. Like, once this story is over, right, with Aether getting his sister back, or vice versa, Lumion getting her brother back, vice versa. Like, where is it gonna go? Where's the story gonna go from there on? What's gonna happen from there? So, will we ever see an end game sort of thing, or you know what I mean? Like, is there gonna be something for us to play in the long term? For the most part, is there gonna be something that would, inspire content? And yeah, so those are definitely the big questions that are going to be answered at some point in the long run. And I don't know, it could be a game that could last for a very long time, possibly, for sure. That's definitely a possibility, but it really is hard to say. I mean, I can't say that it's I can't be optimistic about it. I mean, I don't. That's how I feel about it. Now, don't get me wrong, though. I mean, I'm still gonna play the game for what it is. It's just a game that you can play for like an hour at most, and that's all there is to it. So it's it's kind of just so funny to think about, but it's Genshin Impact is that sort of game. I mean, it blew up so big, and I think a huge part of that is because of the pandemic. There's a lot of like things that came out of the pandemic, right? Good and bad, and Genshin Impact is definitely one of them that came out from the pandemic, because a lot of the times games were delayed. They were pushed to a later release date, and so there wasn't a whole lot in comparison to like previous years. And so it happens that Genshin Impact came out of that year, and I believe it was 2020, and like it just blew up so much because it played like a full-fledged game, even though it is a free-to-play mobile game at the end of the day. But because it felt that way, especially during the big honeymoon phase where you're just constantly just going through the story and exploring things, finding treasure, and using your characters to do some cool stuff, it was such a rush, and you get lost and all that stuff because of its sort of Breath of the Wild sort of aspects to it. The open worldness definitely helps with the playability early on, but I guess it was enough for people to just really cling on to the game, and thus creating this whole community, this whole fan base, this player base or whatever. The player count really flourished because of a lot of these things. But you have to remember that this is all during the pandemic, the prime sort of the 2020 section or portion of the pandemic, where not a whole lot of games came out, the big ones anyway. But now that the big ones are starting to really come out, it definitely is affecting Genshin Impact in a way with the player base. Like the sort of the grip on the players is definitely weaker than it was a year ago, and one of the sort of straws that is sort of straining the camel's back was the anniversary event. It kind of like goes to show that it seems like Mihoyo doesn't really care all that much about Genshin Impact. They throw in the character, they throw in a new event with mini games and stuff like that. Oh yeah, of course, a story, but really they haven't really done much else with the game to fix it, to have any like quality of life updates. They haven't fixed like the characters that need fixing. Even if like these characters are supposed to be for the story and not be so powerful later on, there are fixes that need to be done for some of the characters. And even some of the 5-star characters need some fixing, and they haven't really done so much since. So it seems like it paints this sort of impression from Mihoyo for Genshin Impact because on top of that they are making a new game too along the way. So who knows where Genshin Impact will be at during the launch of that new game with Honkai Impact, whatever that new Honkai Impact game is going to be. It's definitely something to think about, I guess, if you really, really like Genshin Impact. But of course, there are good things as a gacha game. I mean, this is definitely one of the more tolerable gacha games I've ever played. Probably, this game does have one of the best for sure, gacha mechanics I've seen with the pity system. Like, you literally can have the pity carry over to the next banner and stuff like that. Once you get your banner 5-star character, it resets, but you still are guaranteed to get some sort of 5-star character at some point, and it just keeps going. Unlike games like other big games like Fate Grand Order, where what pity system, right? What is that? Essentially, you can spend like thousands of dollars and never get that 5-star character still. Those are the really scary stories, and there are people who just absolutely wail for this game as well. And of course they get the 5-star characters and stuff like that they want, Constellation 6 and all that stuff. It still makes money. You know what I'm saying? Like but still it's weird. It's still predatory, and it's like, oh, I'm guaranteed this. I might as well keep rolling, or maybe spend a little money to reach to that point before the banner closes or whatever. They do a lot of that. Speaking of like limited time sort of windows, the FOMO, right? They have these events with a 2-week expiration sort of thing, usually. And these events can also have these really powerful weapons for being 4 stars and being free for certain characters. So if you miss out on that, you can potentially lose out on these really good stat boosts for your characters, depending on what weapon it is and all that, of course. But that's a lot of what the situation does. It makes it really make people feel the FOMO, fear of missing out. And that's also what really drives sort of that addiction and the FOMO and all that stuff. So the incentive to like, oh, I gotta, get into the game and do my thing, I guess, that sort of thing. So that you don't miss out on those weapons and stuff like that could really give that character a boost someday or whatever. There are a lot of things about Genshin Impact that, make people question, right, their time and their effort and all that stuff, and what they're going to do with their content creation in the future, or their time for anything else really. But that are relating to Genshin Impact, they're kind of like, a lot of people are at this like crossroad of like, should I even continue with this game? I really do wish for Genshin Impact to really flourish for the sake of its players, because if it does keep going, right, and once these games come out, all the other games have been delayed and stuff like that, they have, people have other stuff to do. So there comes to a point where are they really going to really actually put that time into Genshin Impact, or they're going to put it into another game that's like infinitely times more interesting with this thing, this cool thing, and all that stuff. All the AAA games, they're going to be coming out at some point, and that's going to be taking up a lot of their time, especially the big JRPGs that do take a lot of hours and stuff like that. And not to mention, there's other games like Lost Ark that are coming out that could potentially take away that player base, and other sort of live service games in the future too, along the way. There could be another Genshin Impact sort of game that could just blow up and stuff like that. Surprises are definitely around the corner, as always. And it could definitely take over, and that could be one of the final nails in the coffin for Genshin Impact. But it's definitely something to think about, I guess, again. And now that's definitely one scenario. There's always another scenario. And it could go like this for Genshin Impact. I think the game is, because it's so successful, that the developers are kind of just like taking it really slow. They don't really care about the world right now, and they, essentially are going to just, take a mellow route for the game, and just keep doing the same pattern. But once they have a competitor on their hands, then they can start like kind of firing more cylinders, all cylinders, at some point, and start really pumping out all the good stuff, all the juicy stuff, more and more, and all that stuff. And I think that's only because they really start to feel that the game is really, those other games are really starting to take over. So you could say that the game is safe where it's at, and I think it could succeed for a longer while in that sense, because it's so successful right now that it's sort of just self-sustaining at this point, and it kind of just provided itself a safety net sort of situation. So only when the competition really kicks up, only then Genshin Impact will start to sort of like really start to kind of pump up more iron and stuff like that, to pump out more content at the pace of the players' liking. We have to also remember that there are, the world doesn't just revolve around us, the US, the Western side of things. And all the content creators that I watch for the most part are from the Western side of things. So this is definitely a very Western perspective on things. We definitely have to remember of how Japan feels. We have to remember how China feels, right? That's the big one, And if they like it, well, what does that mean for the developers? I think they feel like they're gonna go at their pace more likely than our pace, That's definitely something we have to definitely remember about. We have to remember about the the rest of the world, how they feel about Genshin Impact, and it seems like they're pretty happy with where they are right now with the game. So, I think it's just this could definitely be just a very Western sort of thinking, especially American, I guess, right? Way of thinking when it comes to like how we feel and stuff like that, how players feel about the game as of right now, and all the current state sort of things, and stuff like that, and make these videos to like feel that they're gonna quit very soon and stuff like that. There's always the rest of the world, so MiHoYo is going to take a look at the rest of the world. Even if the entire Western community is up in arms about the game. And I do want to reiterate this point again as a way to wrap up the video, and it's that Genshin Impact at the end of the day is a game for the people and not so much for long-term content creation, unfortunately. It's just it's a mobile game at the end of the day. What do you do in your mobile games? You just go on your phone, do your dailies, and maybe do some weeklies too, but other than that, that's pretty much it. That's just kind of what it is. get new characters here and there, you know, try to pull for them. And again, I mean, yes, while new characters do provide something a little fresh, that's not guaranteed for a number of people because that's gotcha. Sometimes people don't have 180 wishes on them because they don't play the game every day, or they don't put their time into Genshin Impact, all the time. They have work, or they have other games to sort of occupy their interests, or shows, Netflix and all that stuff too. Time is of the essence when it comes to Genshin Impact. When it comes to like trying to keep up with the dailies and get those little daily primo gems and stuff like that. That's another problem too. Is the rewarding system. That's a huge problem as well. It just feels really underwhelming at times, and that could also drive away people as well. But it's going back to the point though. Characters can't guarantee new content at times because it's gotcha. It's RNG. There are times where people don't get that character, so it's like it becomes obvious of what that means when they don't get that character. They don't have new content for another 2 weeks and stuff like that, and that can go on. Now, yes, they're guaranteed to get that character at some point because of the pity system, but sometimes the pity system can go all the way to 90. They don't get the character they want; they just get the base 5-star character. And then they have to do another 90 wishes at most to be guaranteed that banner character. But by then, they probably don't have enough because, those factors. So that's the sort of thing, man. That's what Genshin Impact is at. So sorry for this long video, but Genshin Impact is one of my favorite ongoing games, but I do understand where people are coming from, and I do really think about these things as well, because I do make content here and there. I like talking about the news. I like talking about the characters at times. I like talking about the banners, whether this is good or not, or blah blah blah. That's kind of where I'm at. Of course, the poll videos as well, the summoning videos. Of course, that's always some content to be had. But when it comes to the big popular streamers, you can only do it for so long before it starts to get really repetitive at times. Same reactions, same sort of drama, same sort of thing, like formula and stuff like that. It's hard to kind of keep things fresh, other than the fact that it's just a different character for those sort of banners. And now, certainly, the game has been very, very life-changing, and all that. So it changed a good number of people's lives, and so it's that's why people really cling on to the game. It's very significant for them. Now I'm going to really end the video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for this long sort of thought piece or whatever for Genshin Impact. I really do like the game, so for what it is. But it is concerning when these things are pointed out and stuff like that. And when you do come to a realization, it's definitely concerning for its future. I definitely don't like seeing these sort of things go away. I've seen it few times or enough times when it comes to certain mobile games. They kind of just disappear on my phone. It's like, well, I'm glad I didn't spend money on these ones. So but anyways, if you have any comments, please leave it down below. We really appreciate it and all that. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Really appreciate that too as well. And of course comment. So this has been my long Hawke Talks episode on the current state of Genshin Impact as of right now. So let's hope for the best. Hopefully it gets a glow up at some point, but that is for us to see. Time can only tell. So thank you so much. And yes, I'll be pulling for Yae Miko, so wish me luck. And I wish you all the luck for Yae Miko as well. May the Yae Miko wanters become Yae Miko havers. So until then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Sean out.